Welcome to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Andrew Bartolotta. Today, we're talking about mindset shifts and career happiness with best-selling author Terry McDougall of Terry B. McDougall Coaching. Terry, thank you so much for joining us today.
Andrew, thanks for having me, and I'm excited for our conversation.
So first, give listeners an idea for your career background and expertise.
Well, I am an executive and career coach, and I'm an author. I have been working with high achieving professionals and business owners who are successful but not satisfied for the past 4 years. And I absolutely love it. It's nothing better than helping people tap into their full potential to have more happiness and success in their lives. But before I made that pivot in 2017, I was a marketer for probably more decades than I care to share, but primarily in the financial services industry. I worked for two large national banks before I became a full-time coach.
Now, I mentioned on the onset that you're an author. You wrote the book, Winning the Game of Work, Career Happiness and Success on Your Own Terms. And in your book, you share how you can deliver more impact on the job with some simple hacks. Can you share with our audience some of these hacks they can learn about in your book?
One of the things that I actually focus a lot of my clients on is looking for leverage points in your job. So often we just will, gut it out. If we need to do something, we're putting the pedal to the metal, we're working, burning the midnight oil and that kind of thing. And I think for high achievers, that's just sort of the habit that's gotten us to where we are, right? That we're willing to work hard, we're smart, we're willing to pitch in, but sometimes working harder is not necessarily even an option. And so, in those cases, it's important to step back and get some perspective on what's going on around you, and looking for where can you have more impact with the same amount of effort or even less effort. And some of the leverage points that I think are very often underutilized are things like delegation, or asking for help. Like, if you don't have people to delegate to, look around you and say, who could help me in this situation, and engaging them to help you. Things like looking at process efficiency, right? Is a lot of times in organizations, we do things the way that we do them because it's the way we've always done them. And I've definitely seen in my career where, when I started asking around, like, why do we do it this way? Or why do we do this process? It's a vestige of some, old boss or some old system that we don't even have anymore. And so we're doing things that aren't even required. I've had clients who, had to spend, hours each week putting reports together, and when they checked with their boss to see if the boss even cared about the report, they found that they didn't. They were like, I don't know why you give that to me. I don't need it. And so they, found additional hours in their week because they were able to cut something out that wasn't necessary. I think just re-examining how we do things, what we're doing, and really questioning whether it could be done in a better or different way that maybe takes less effort.
Those are some good points. In my office, I have above my computer at work, I have a sign that really it's a clipping from a blog post on like how you can say no, or in like a respected way. Because so many times we're like,
Yes.
yeah, I'll add that to my plate, and then you're overwhelmed and you're not focusing on what you need to be doing to achieve your goals. And so it's like how to say no nicely, which seems a little elementary, but but it really does help when you don't need to add something else on your plate at that time.
Well, it's so funny that you say that, because did you check the author? Might the author be me? Because
It probably
I have
is.
a section in my book about that. It's not, I can't remember what and I've also written a blog post on it. It's, like 19 ways to say no nicely, right? Because so often, what can cause a lot of stress and inefficiency is not putting boundaries in place. And there's lots of great people that we work with, and there are also people who get through their day by getting other people to do work that actually is their work to do. And sometimes we're nice and we don't feel, we just want to help people, or we are afraid of conflict, and so we won't say no. And there's so many ways that you can do it. Like, hey, I would love to help you, but my plate's full right now. If you want to come back at the end of the day. And one of the things that I see often is that, well, first of all, the first no is the hardest, right? So it's the first time you say no, a lot of times it's going to keep people from coming back and asking again, right?
Sure.
Because people don't like, they don't like to be told no. And if someone is not your boss and they're coming and asking you for something, and it's getting in the way of what your primary job responsibilities are, your first loyalty really is to yourself and getting your own work done. And, if you want to help someone, but, there's other ways to help people. It could be like, could be directing them, what do they say, like teach a man to fish, right? Versus fishing, giving them a fish, right? You can say, hey, I found um, this page in the handbook is really, or I found Google, or hey,
Yeah.
there's a great YouTube video that can teach you how to do that, right? Like you're addressing it, you're being nice, you're being helpful, but you're not doing it for them, right?
Those are good points too. So we're in this strange labor market currently where there's countless businesses looking for qualified talent to hire. What are some tips to stand out amongst the crowd?
When I'm working with people in job search, I advise people to spend more time networking and less time applying for jobs online. And I can get into the reasons why in a moment if we've got time. But um, really, the quickest and easiest way to get a job is to have somebody that works at the company recommend you. And I've actually had a few clients just even over the last year or so who have gotten jobs incredibly quickly by not necessarily by even trying to network into, but just networking period. Just a lot of times when people are looking for jobs, or if they've got a job, or maybe they're out of work but they're looking, not to approach people and say, hey, do you know of a job, but to say something like, what you do looks really interesting, or I really admire your company. I'm wondering if you would have 20 or 30 minutes to spend with me so I could ask you a few questions. And you know, I think that when you approach networking from a place of curiosity and of gratitude, it comes off as very authentic, and people don't feel, you know, scared to meet with you. Because I think, going back to like that whole idea of saying no, most people don't like to say no. And if we're too direct in approaching someone and saying, hey, I saw that, your company has an opening. I'm wondering if you can help me get that job. People don't want to disappoint other people, and maybe they're not in a position, or they're feeling, like somebody's coming on too strong. If you can approach people and just, kind of explain to them like, hey, here's where I am in my role, and this is what or this is why I'm interested in learning more about what your company does or what you do. If you can allow people to get to know you and take an interest in you, a lot of times they will actually begin to want to be an advocate for you. Like if they like you, they may say, "Hey, send me your resume. I'll give it to, I think we've got an opening, and I'll give it to the manager." But if you approach them too directly, it causes them to kind of like step back. And I like to kind of equate this to dating, right? In the beginning, you're just like getting to know, hey, do you have any pets? Do you have any brothers or sisters? Like what's your favorite kind of food? Like you're just at, like learning the basics. You don't
Yeah.
come in and be like the first date, like, hey, do you want to get married? Right?
Yeah.
That's because that's just too much, right? And naturally, if we think about if somebody did that, you'd be like, whoa. I mean, they might be a really great person, but they come on so strong that you're like, oh, okay, they're a stalker. I don't want to I don't want to have anything to do with them. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, I'd say like develop your network. And here's some things to think about, because so often people, um, I know that networking sends a cold chill down many people's backs because they think like, oh, this is like walking into a room full of strangers and trying to, juggle hors d'oeuvres and my business cards and a glass of wine. And
Right.
that's not what networking is. Networking is looking around you to say, like, who do I know? Who did I go to high school with? Who did I used to work with? You know, who are friends with my parents? Looking on LinkedIn and saying, like, oh, okay, I'm interested in this company. Who do I know that knows somebody there?
Yeah.
And asking for introductions, reaching out to people to just say, hey, would you like to grab a cup of coffee? Or could we, jump on a Zoom call or a phone call and just reconnect and just let people know what's going on in your life, right? Just again, going back to that curiosity and gratitude. That's a really attractive combination versus like, desperation, like I need a job,
Yeah, the
right?
desperation coming on too strong. I agree.
Yeah.
And I think personal branding too is so important, especially when you're like starting out your career,
Mhm.
because all of the jobs I've had are because of social media. And so a lot of them are networking via social media, but then also, in person, but starting that relationship
Mhm.
online. And it really has like in this role per se, too, this role was not meant for the graphic design and more media based. It was more technical. And so they sort of moved the role to fit my expertise.
Mhm.
And so I think that's very interesting too, is that, once you find where you want to work, you can sort of create, in most cases, a job description that helps propel you to be the best employee because it's based on your expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that companies have problems, right? They've got issues that need to be addressed. These issues are combined together to create a job description. And when we apply for jobs online, they've already imagined what that job looks like. They've already kind of packaged together some problems that need to be addressed,
Mhm.
and they put them out there online hoping that there's somebody that's going to be able to address those issues that they have. When you're networking, a lot of times you can connect with organizations before they have, you know, put those problems in a box, right? So, I mean, I had one client who, speaking, I'll tell the story because I think it's just so great.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was working for a big four accounting firm, and he was doing this because he didn't know what he wanted to major in college, and his dad was like, well, accountants make a good living, so he majored in accounting. He's really more of a creative person than that. And when we started working together, he was trying to get a job, like going from a big four accounting firm to like working at a startup. And I was like, man, that is a big leap. Right? Like because it's just so traditional and conservative working for those big four accounting firms. And I said, gave him the same advice that I've shared here today is, he had applied for a lot of jobs, gotten no traction. And I said, why don't you just start networking? And his father-in-law introduced him to somebody who was the partner in a regional accounting firm, much, much smaller. I think the place that he worked had like 300,000 employees. And the one he meets this guy for coffee, and not a job interview at all, just sharing, okay, what do you do, like what kind of accounting do you do, the guy talking to him about it. By the end of the coffee, he said, I really think that you'd be a great fit for our firm, and here's why. You have a specialty in accounting that we do not have. If you came to work for us, you could start that up. You're 32 years old. We've got a lot of 50-year-olds partners, and we've got a lot of, 22, 24-year-old associates. We really don't have a lot of people in that middle section of the company. If you came on board, you could mentor the younger accountants. You could start up this practice, and we'd let you get involved in whatever you wanted to get involved in. If you wanted to get involved in business development, whatever, you could do that. And to top it off, the place was 10 minutes from the new house that he and his wife had just bought. So even though it wasn't like crazy, going to work at this, sexy startup or anything,
Yeah.
the partner looked at him and said, "We've got a hole in our firm that this guy fits perfectly." They didn't even know. that they needed him until they met him. And I was almost in disbelief. We'd worked together for um, at least a couple months at the time, and he called me and said, "Let me tell you how this coffee went." And it was really so great. But you just never know. When you allow yourself to be known, sometimes that gets, the employer's imagination going and being like, "Gosh, he's such a great person, and I think we could use him."
You are the host of the Marketing Mambo podcast,
Yeah,
which is the
yeah.
fun and fast-paced conversation with bright and like-minded people from around the globe. What are some of your favorite conversations from your episodes, and where can people go to listen to them?
People can go to marketingmambo.net. And also, Marketing Mambo is on all of the platforms, Apple, iTunes, Google, Spotify, it's everywhere. But I think like my favorite conversation is like usually the last one that I had. No,
Yeah.
I had a conversation with a PR agency founder who got her start by advocating for a man that she believed was wrongly convicted and was on death row. I mean, she was like a telemarketer in Canada, no less, and heard about this guy's story, and just started um, trying to get stories written about him. So she said she like went online to learn how to do press releases and started sending out press releases all over the world, and stories started to be being written about this guy, and eventually he was freed. Like that somebody looked into it and he was freed. But the funny thing is that she told me was that she kept doing her like telemarketing job all this time, and then finally realized, okay, I've gotten stories placed around the world in some of the top, media outlets. And she finally sort of woke up to the fact that she was a PR professional. And so she founded her firm, and now she works with authors and entertainers and really small businesses. Her name's Tracy Lamori. She was super interesting. I actually, the episode that's coming out next week is with somebody that I actually worked with. She was a junior marketer, and we worked together for a few years, and then she ended up going to work for. We worked at a bank, and she ended up going to work for another investment bank in New York, and eventually was offered an opportunity to fill in for somebody's maternity leave in London. And so she went. It was supposed to be just a short-term assignment, but since then she's done so many amazing things. She actually, got to London. This was probably maybe 2015 or so, and actually recognized that because her grandmother was born in Ireland, that she could apply for dual citizenship. So she became a citizen of the EU. Has since moved over to work in cryptocurrency, and she's the chief marketing officer and head of business development for a cryptocurrency firm. She's ended up getting an MBA at a business school in Barcelona, that where they actually traveled all over the world and took classes in China, in Brazil, in lots of other places. So it's really like an international MBA. But um, I think the thing that I love, her name is Kelly Peterson, and her episode's coming out on Monday. But the thing I love about her is that she was somebody who had big goals. The place where we worked together, there really weren't opportunities for her to continue to advance at the pace that she had an ability to do. And
Yeah.
so she had the courage to step out and take risks, and her risks have paid off at every turn. I mean, it's amazing to me. And we talk a lot on the podcast about how it's scary to take risks, yet when you do, amazing things can happen that are like really even beyond anything that, I mean, I don't think that she would have, when she was sitting in New York. She grew up on Long Island, and she, got her first job in Manhattan. But I don't think that she was sitting, in New York saying, "Oh, I wanna get an MBA and, you know, like, travel to all of these different places and take classes in China," or anything like that. She just took, like, one little step at a time, right? Like,
Yeah.
working at the place where we worked and realizing that there weren't opportunities for advancement, rather than staying and being dissatisfied, she was like, "Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to leave and, get that next, level role," and then, continuing to do that and then saying yes to the, "Okay, I guess I'll go to London and work there for a few months to fill in for this maternity leave," and then it just every little step that she took just opened up new opportunities, and she just kept saying yes, and I think that that's amazing when that can happen.
What puts a smile on your face when you look at the work that you're able to do to help professionals each and every day?
I just love when people can step fully into their potential, because I think that all of us really want to be recognized for what we're good at, and we want people to say, "Yes, you can do that." Um, but we can do that for ourselves, and when we, I always talk about confidence being the expectation of a positive outcome. If we can say to ourselves, "You know what? If I show up and I bring my best, there's gonna be a positive outcome." It's, it really is, lovely, and I try to hold space for people that I'm working with to believe that the thing they want is possible, and when they can step into that and make it happen, there's nothing better, honestly.
I love that answer. And you can tell you love what you do. So, I mean,
Yeah,
there's fulfillment even with the work that you're doing, because how can you fulfill others if you're not fulfilled in the work that you're doing? And this conversation just goes to show that you love your job and you're great at it too. So, that's really cool. Where
I
can
do
people go
love
to
it.
learn? Yeah. Where can people go to learn more, support your efforts, and purchase your book?
People can find me on, my website at terrybmcdougall.com, and if they wanna set up time with me, they can do that there as well. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and, my handle on LinkedIn is Terry B. McDougall. I'm open to connecting with anybody that would like to connect with me. If people are interested in learning more about my book, it is available on Amazon as an ebook and paperback, and that title is Winning the Game of Work.
Harry, thank you so much for coming on the City Current Radio Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrew. It was really fun.